It was, from President Obama, the kind of decision likely to get criticism from both sides. The president today announcing some changes, I stress some, to the massive data gathering done by the NSA, but not as many changes as critics wanted or his own handpicked panel had even recommended, right?
Well, yeah, Rich, the president doesn't want the NSA to hold on to that never-ending collection of metadata, you know, the information about when and to whom you've emailed, called, and texted and more, but not the actual content of those messages. And he wants the government to have to get a court order to now gain that access, only he's not making that change just yet.
President Obama acknowledged today that critics were right. The NSA phone surveillance program could be a slippery slope to major violations of privacy.
I believe we need a new approach.
The so-called metadata, phone numbers of hundreds of millions of Americans and details of who they called and when, will still be collected, but the net will not be cast as wide. And this is key. The data will not be stored by the government. If the government wants to access the database, it will now need court approval. President Obama tasked the Attorney General and intelligence officials to come up with a permanent plan by the end of March for who will hold on to this massive amount of information.
And I believe it is important that the capability that this program is designed to meet is preserved.
The controversy created strange political bedfellows. Civil liberties advocates on the left and libertarians on the right agreed the surveillance was a major breach of privacy. Critics on the other side said this data collection is necessary to keep the nation safe. Today's announcement was a middle ground solution, and some critics said they still weren't satisfied. Former National Counterterrorism Advisor Richard Clark was on the panel, handpicked by President Obama, that offered recommendations on how to address all of those concerns.
These are decisions that allow us to continue a strong counterterrorism intelligence program, while at the same time having more transparency.
One person whose presence was definitely felt all around today's speech by the president, Edward Snowden. The NSA contractor turned leaker turned expatriate sparked the debate and criticism that put the agency in the spotlight and led to the changes. But the president also making sure to note today that those disclosures could impact operations in ways the government may not fully understand for years, Rich.
Okay, I'll start with you, Andrew. It seemed maybe this is a compliment, but the president managed to make everybody unhappy here at the end of the day. He didn't go as far for changes as progressives wanted, and even some libertarians on the right. And conservatives say he weakened national security by making some of the amendments he did. At the end of the day, what struck me at least was so much of this is in private industry's hands. It's not like he can just wave a wand to make it all get better instantaneously.
And I think this might be one of those areas where it's so delicate that to go incrementally if you're going to make changes makes a lot of sense. So I think the president did well with that. There were also, of the recommendations that we went through, you know, there's like 40 of them. We spotlighted 7 or 10 of them earlier this week. The 2 that I felt most strongly about were in there as well, sort of getting a greater voice to represent the people who would be the target of these things. One, requiring a court order to get the information on the metadata, and 2, creating the position of an advocate on the FISA court, so there's somebody at least representing the person that the prosecutors want to investigate.
The idea they're going to go to the FISA court more than they are. You know what struck me out of this, Dominic, was forget about what the candidate Obama was before 08, right? They're all the same in that they'll get there, Republican, Democrat, young, old, were in the military, not in the military. They get in there and they say, wait a minute. Man, this isn't bad. I got a whole lot of power here, right? I got all these agencies to protect the country, but also there's a lot of juice. They don't want to give it up.
They don't want to give it up. I can't agree with you more. And the one consistent thing that we have seen physically, no matter who the president is, to show you the enormous pressure and power that they have, they all tend to gray the moment they take office. Yeah. You know, a young guy like Obama, young guy like Bill Clinton. So, you know, it's interesting. But, you know, no matter what they say during the campaign, you can come in like a Kennedy, as Obama did. But once you're the president,
and the other thing, John, is since 2001, nobody wants another 9/11 on their watch.
Nobody.
And if they have to make a toss-up between certain privacy protections, and they know down deep it's going too far, they don't know where it ends, they say, I'll let the next guy worry about it because I can't have this happen on my watch, even if it's a trade-off that's not good for the country, arguably, or even if it doesn't necessarily lead to protection. One thing that came out of this was, you know, they can't point to one full plot here that this metadata program has actually stopped. And remember, it was, I think, 40, Andrew, right, they originally said, and then that came down to 20-something, then about a dozen. Now they can't give one tangible thing. There was one investigation that led to, but not of an imminent terror attack or something else. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but the story's changed a lot.
Well, let me just say this. I mean, first of all, this is the illusion of this. The current changes announced by the president as an illusion of some type of protection of privacy. Look, especially if the Pfizer court is going to be the one deciding whether or not, and of course that's the foreign intelligence court. They're going to which meet in secret. If they're going to decide whether the government should get this information or not. It's not going to be a heavy burden. It's going to be, we need to do this in the interest of national security. It's not going to be a heavy burden to get that information out.
That's a good point.
So,
hey, we need the information. Really? Do you really need it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
That's pretty much, yeah.
So, and they know this. You think they're going to just make it very difficult? No, they already know this. So it's the illusion here.
But,
so
at least there's that new advocate that's going to be on the Pfizer court to at least have another set of eyes on it. I guess. Right. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
But there's been two competing arguments that came out of this, and really, in a 60 Minutes piece, and even this come out, which is the NSA is like, you guys give us too much credit. We get hundreds of millions of calls. Do you really think we can go through them all? Even if we wanted to be Big Brother, it's just such a, it connects dots.
But that's a self-defeating argument, because if they're getting so much information and they can't make heads or tails of it, then why do they need all that information?
They want to be able to go back to it if they can make a connection.
After the fact. I mean, that's not helping you prevent, which is what we keep hearing this is all supposed to be about.
And what really helps us prevent stuff is really the CIA and the intelligence on the ground. Our people on the ground.
Yes.
That's always been
and sharing
the best
information,
way.
which we didn't do before 9/11.
That's always
obviously.
been the best way.
Okay. When we come back after the break here, a really good conversation we had earlier today with Rachel Swarns. If you don't recognize the name, you may recognize her work. She's been doing a series in the New York Times, which isn't about data, isn't about numbers. It's about real people, some who are doing really well, some who are right there in the middle, and some that were struggling, but they all find themselves in a spot right now where it's getting really tough just to get by. We'll talk to her after this.